Hey everyone, it's so good to be back with you for video number 3 of the Train My Brain for Success series. I'm Dr. Erin, the success psychologist. And before we dive in my work as the success psychologist, I am a high performance expert. So I coach people and teams and companies on how to be high performers. And I want to share with you the definition of what it means to be a high performer to see if you want to be one. And I'm doing so as a setup of explaining why what I'm going to be sharing with you today is so important, okay? Because it's one of the ways that the highest performers think, okay? So a high performer, by definition, there's a couple components. The first is these are the people that are in the top 1 to 3% of their profession, okay? The second component is they stay there at the top for a long period of time. So we're talking decades. So this is the realtor, for example, that is always in the top 5 year after year after year, like 10, 20 years. And you're asking, how does she do it? How does she always stay at the top? Okay. So that's fascinating. It's not just this peak performance. It's not this crash and burn. They don't burn out. They have this longevity where they sustain their success. Isn't that interesting? The third piece of what it means to be a high performer is they have, research has found, joy, confidence, and engagement, meaning they're happy. They're the happiest people that you meet. They are confident in their abilities and their ability to trust themselves, to confide in themselves, and they're engaged in their life, which just really means they're awake in their life. They're not asleep at the wheel. They're feeling their day. Okay. So far, so good. The last piece is, this is what I think is so fascinating. They do all of this while being the healthiest people on the planet and the people that enjoy the greatest relationships. So they achieve success not at the expense of the things that matter the most, but really because of it. So one thing that we know about high performers is they live with a great sense of intentionality. They feel like they're the ones that are driving the vehicle of their life, so to speak. They're in the driver's seat. So instead of being reactive, they are the ones that are creating their results, their life, their happiness, their confidence, their energy. So what I'm going to teach you today is how to be less reactive and less of a response to the stimuli that are happening in your world. So if we think of, there's a stimulus and a response. So something happens in your life and you have a thought, okay? We want there to be some space between these two. Otherwise, you are simply a walking response. You are just walking around the world responding, which just means you have very little autonomy, very little say, very little, I guess you would say, control over how things go in your day-to-day life. And instead, we want you to have this space, because this space is what we call choice. And part of what we did in video 1 was helping you realize that you could be the observer of your thoughts. So the observational stance allows that choice. But I'm going to share with you 3 pieces of good news about how we think and how our brains work. And it's in the context of helping you understand that you can create this space for yourself and be less reactive and more in control of your mindset. Okay. So the first piece of good news is you are not your thoughts. Your identity is not your thoughts. Let me give you an example. Many of us have had negative thoughts in our life where, thank God they're not true. Okay. Maybe some of us have thought, I am unlovable, or I am a failure, or I am a terrible mother. Thank goodness our thoughts are not our identity. I am Erin having the thought that. I am not my thought. I think that's really good news, right? So that's one way we get some space. I am not my thoughts. The second piece of good news is not all of our thoughts are true. Now, this might seem so obvious, but really it comes in quite handy when we have some negative or limiting beliefs to be able to look at our thoughts and kind of have an interesting look at them. And even if we think they're true, we can maybe imagine that maybe possibly they're not true. Let me give you an example. I've had the thought, it'll never happen for me. Well, I'm having the thought that it'll never happen to me. I'm not quite sure that's true. Maybe someone has had the thought, everyone's going to laugh at me, or I'm going to look like a fool if this doesn't work. So again, good news that not all of our thoughts are true. Okay, the last piece, the third piece of good news. It kind of sounds like bad news, but that it's really good news, and I will explain. But the third piece of good news is you do not have control over all of your thoughts. I know, sounds like bad news. You do not have control over your first thought, I should say. So sometimes our thoughts are automatic, uninvited, unwelcome, untrue. So, for example, I might say, money is the root of all. And you might say, well, evil. That's the thought that came to my mind. That was the first thought that came to my mind. It's because of my conditioning. And I don't even believe the money is the root of all evil. I actually believe money is the root of all awesomeness. And I'm open to receiving more money, and all good things in my life come from having choices. And that comes from having money. And why would I say money is the root of all evil? Because we don't necessarily have control over our first thought. And here's the good news. We do have control over our second thought. So we might have the thought, it'll never happen for me. Oh, okay. So I just had the first thought, it'll never happen for me. Maybe that's a thought I've had for many, many years. It's like a well-traveled pathway in my brain. But I can have control over the second thought of, you know what? I don't have evidence that that's true. And I am going to continue pursuing my dream. And I'm pretty confident that I'm a woman that figures things out, and that success is inevitable if I do what successful people do or think how successful people think. All sorts of second thoughts you can have. I might have the thought, it'll never happen for me. Second thought might be, that's ridiculous. Of course it's going to happen for you. I mean, there's so many different second thoughts. So really, this third video series is all about the power of minding your mind, of observing your mind so that you get that space, so that you can create choice for yourself, so that you can tell your mind what you think about it instead of it telling you what to do all the time. So it's really the way that you regain some personal mastery over your life, right? So we've covered a lot of ground in these last 3 training videos. And again, thank you so much for being here with me. I want you to think back on that big, beautiful, gorgeous goal that you have for yourself for the next year. You now know how to think like a pro. You now know how professionals think, how the greats think. Now, you just have to figure out, what do I need to do to get there? If you want help with that, if you're feeling stuck, if you want some eyeballs on your strategy, your business plan, any of it, I would love to help. I coach people for all sorts of reasons. I'm a psychologist. We can create a coaching package just for you. And if not, that's not something you're interested in, come and follow me on social. Let's not be strangers. Let's stay connected. I share lots and lots of free content, valuable content on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can email me at the email in the workbook at drerinspeaks@gmail.com. You've got my phone number there. We can schedule a free complimentary strategy call, discovery call. Let me know how I can help. If you're looking for a speaker, I would love to chat with you about that. Thank you for being with me. You now know how to train your brain for success. You now know how to get out of your own way to think like one of the greats. Bye.